In 2 weeks, you will be the highest ranking Democrat serving in Washington.
I talk to President Biden, regularly, sometimes several times in a week, or usually several times in a week. His mental acuity is great. It's fine. It's as good as it's been over the years. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
You defrauding the public with ridiculous bullshit?
In this, you were obviously in close contact with President Biden well before the public tuned into that debate that ultimately led to him stepping down. What do you say to Americans who feel as though you and other top Democrats misled them about President Biden's mental acuity?
Well, look, we didn't, and let's look at President Biden. And he's a patriot. He's a great guy.
Bullshit.
The president said in an interview that he has not made a decision about whether or not to run for re-election. Do you personally want him to run for re-election and lead the best candidate for your party?
If he runs, I'm going to support him. Yes. And when he stepped down, he did it on his own because he thought it was better not only for the Democratic Party, for America. We should all salute him. We should all salute him.
That's bullshit, shit, that's bullshit, shit, that's bullshit.
The New York Times reporting on a private and reportedly emotional meeting between Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and President Biden that happened on July 13th.
So this just in, Chuck Schumer has spoken to Joe Biden and told him to get out of the race. That is gigantic. He is the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, of course, the Senate Majority Leader. But Schumer and Jeffries apparently have spoken to Biden and told him, you've got to go. And that is what we were all waiting for.
And when he stepped down, he did it on his own.
See, today the New York Times revealed that Chuck Schumer delivered the final blow, or dagger, to Biden's re-election hopes. After Biden bombed at the debate against Trump, Schumer took it as something of a gift, and he used it as a catalyst for the conversation with the president.
And when he stepped down, he did it on his own.
According to the New York Times, multiple Democratic senators were begging Joe not to run for a second term. That would include Chuck Schumer. All the while, Obama, behind the scenes, pulling the strings, along with Nancy Pelosi. And after all the election, all the big players in the Democratic Party, right now they're kind of all hating on each other.
I'm told that this was a one-on-one meeting, just the Senate leader and the president, and that Chuck Schumer forcefully made the case that it would be better for Biden, better for the Democratic Party, and better for the country if he were to bow out of the race.
Now, Schumer reportedly told the president that staying in the race would be catastrophic. If you're running and you lose to Trump, and we lose the Senate, we don't get back the House, that 50 years of amazing, beautiful work goes out the window, Joe. But worse, you go down in history as one of the darkest figures. If I were you, I wouldn't run. I'm urging you not to run.
And when he stepped down, he did it on his own.
And he would end with a directive. If I were you, Mr. Schumer said, I wouldn't run. And I'm urging you not to run.
And when he stepped down, he did it on his own.
And I'm urging you not to run.
He's had nothing to say about Nancy Pelosi's role in squeezing him out. A big part of the reason that he was removed from the ticket.
And when he stepped down, he did it on his own.
Chuck Schumer helped get rid of Biden. Just published in the New York Times.
Chuck Schumer now in the hot seat, too. We just found out Chuck was the lead actor in the coup, although that's according to Chuck. He just spilled his guts to the Times.
When he stepped down, he did it on his own.
According to the story, after the debate, Schumer's flip phone wouldn't stop ringing. Biden wasn't leaving. Instead, he released a letter telling Democrats to fall in line. On Capitol Hill, Democrats didn't even think Joe wrote it.
And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done.
Barack was getting worried that Democrats were doing nothing, but he wasn't going to be the one to break the news to Joe. Barry said his relationship with Joe was fragile, and he told Chuck, you may be the better one.
And when he stepped down, he did it on his own.
He was like, trust me, you don't want me to do this. And when Chuck showed up in Rehoboth Beach, he heard Biden shouting on a Zoom call with other Democrats, I'm not leaving.
and I know how to do this job.
And he knew things were about to get awkward. So Chuck had to tell him how bad his poll numbers were. And he showed him a sheet where Biden had just a 5% chance of beating Trump. And Biden looked at it like he'd never seen numbers like this before. His own pollsters were hiding the numbers from him. And left with one last warning, quote, "If I were you, I wouldn't run. And I'm urging you not to run."
When he stepped down, he did it on his own.
Well, Biden only responded that he needed a week to think about it, it's being reported. And Schumer left the meeting and then reportedly again broke down in tears.
And he's a patriot. He's a great guy.
Biden didn't shout, didn't argue. All he did was say, "You really think Kamala can win?" And then Biden said, "I need a week."
8 days later, Biden withdrew from the race.
As Schumer walked out, Biden put his hands on his shoulder and says, quote, "You've got bigger balls than anyone I've ever met." And Chuck went out to his car and broke down crying. Crying Chuck. A week later, Biden dropped out.
But the drama behind the Democrats' ouster of Biden is only part of the story. The real scandal are the events leading up to the coup. The New York Times is also reporting that long before the debate, Schumer had privately concluded that the barrier of Biden's age was too much for him to overcome. But Schumer, like every other Democrat in a position of power, had chosen to do nothing. Well, that's not true, though. Schumer and the Democrats didn't do nothing. They spent months, and I would say years, lying to the American people.
Donald Trump has done virtually nothing. Now, with Joe Biden as president, there is real hope in America, a very strong likelihood that we will deal with these crises and make sure that America gets back on its feet again, working, socializing, and doing all the things we need to do. So I say to Donald Trump, you lost. No more games. Go home. Go home to Florida. Stop delaying. Stop making up lies about the election. It was fair. There have been no irregularities found.
3 million people properly voted in the state of Wisconsin. More than 200,000 identified during this recount did not. But those votes got counted, and our statute says they should not have been. That, in our view, is a taint on our election in Wisconsin. Thank you.
And I believe Joe Biden won our state by about 20,000 votes.
Correct.
And you're talking about over 200,000 that were outside of our law. That
Folks, I give you my word as a Biden, I would not be running again if I didn't believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job.
And now we have more confirmation that he was lying. From the Times, this. During their weekly conversations, the president often rambled. Once in a while, Biden would forget why he had called. But Schumer thought little of it. He was convinced that Biden could handle the job. Oh, please. But no one believes this. No one thinks that Chuck Schumer, who's still, believe it or not, pretty sharp, thought that Biden could perform his duties as president for another 6 months, let alone for another 4 years.
Do you feel, as we have this conversation today, that President Biden could serve another 4 years had he stayed in the race and potentially won?
Well, I'm not going to speculate. As I said, I think his record is a stellar one, and he'll go down in history as a really outstanding president.
They thought that they could cover this up. They were putting the presidency in the hands of a man they knew was declining to continue in 4 years if they were lucky. They wanted to use Biden as their useful idiot, as their puppet, to do exactly as they wanted. Well, that debate, that abysmal performance by Joe Biden, exposed all of them.
I am your voice.
So in the end, this remains one of the most egregious abuses of power we've ever seen in American politics. It's a scandal of lying, then it's a scandal of hopscotching over the voters who actually picked Joe Biden to be the nominee. We can never again trust any of these people anywhere near the halls of power.